I'm cooking food from Brunei. I'm making Ambuyat with belutak beef, mackerel curry, Sambal prawns, kangkung, belacan, durian tempoyak, Sambal, and cendol for dessert. Starting off with the durian tempoyak. It's a sauce that is made from fermented durian. I have bought durian before frozen in the UK, but it's quite expensive and that's a hell of a lot more than I need. I managed to find this like little paste stick. It's durian mixed with a bit of sugar and it should work for my purposes. So I basically rehydrated that with some water and left it for 2 weeks to ferment at room temperature. You can tell it's working because it started bubbling, which is exactly what I want from a like to ferment. So that's cool. Next, I just got all my ingredients together for cooking all of the dishes. In case you can't tell, this is a hell of a lot of ingredients, taking up my entire table. It's a lot of stuff, but it is much easier to cook this way because then I have everything in front of me and I don't have to look for things, especially my slightly more obscure ingredients. Next, I'm making the Sambal. So Sambal, it's basically a staple sauce in Brunei from what I understand, and some surrounding countries. Blended shallots, chili, I used fresh and dried, well, I say fresh, actually frozen, garlic, tamarind, turmeric, palm sugar, shrimp paste, and dried shrimp. In case you can't tell, really fishy flavours going on here. Now, everything basically just goes into my food processor, blend up into like a sauce. It's kind of like spicy, sweet, bit sweet, and predominantly fishy. I actually really like this stuff. I won't lie, I don't like the spice, but I have since made versions of it without as much or minimal spice, and I keep some of it in my freezer because it's really cool to use as like a marinade for different things, just because it's such a nice flavour. So I can definitely see how it goes on as like a staple sauce. I just like my non-spicy version. Next up, I'm preparing for the kangkung belacan. So kangkung is a vegetable also known as the water spinach. Now, I cannot find this in the UK, but looking at the pictures, it has a lot of leaf and stem going onto it. So I use green beans to kind of mimic that stem and spring greens to kind of mimic that leaf, because it looks a bit more substantial than normal spinach, and I just didn't want to use normal spinach for this. So that's kind of how I've approximated it, because the green isn't quite so important. Now, a lot of the recipes I found for this dish, they essentially kind of cook it in a sauce that is very similar to Sambal, which it's a bit annoying because then it's basically just the same sauce, but it meant that I could just cook it in the same way. Anyway, next up, throw in some peppers to the food processor because we need that for the next step. Need tomatoes because we are going to be making the belutak beef. Belutak beef. Now, this is a dried spicy sausage that you find in Brunei. However, I cannot buy it in England, and there aren't really any recipes to make it. Not that I do not have the skills or resources I need to make that kind of sausage. That is difficult. So I did an approximation. I managed to find some references to what the sausage contained, and I essentially approximated it. So spices, ground beef, onion, blah 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 blah. Essentially the sausage minus the casing. It uses egg apparently, but essentially think spicy tomato beef mince. Now this uses a lot of spices, way more spices than I am comfortable with, as well as those tomatoes and those peppers you saw. So it's quite a rich and spicy sauce meat mixture. But I can totally see how this works as a sausage mixture. It really is quite excellent. Like, I highly recommend doing something like this. And if I ever go to Brunei or anywhere similar where they sell this kind of, belutak beef thing, totally love to try the authentic sausage. But my approximation as far as it goes, I hope it did at least some justice to mimicking the flavour, because I quite liked it. It's definitely not the kind of thing I'd cook with normally, but as you can see, it's just oh yeah, yes, this is probably one of the spiciest things I've ever made. My heck. Next up, frying off some shallots, some onions, and maybe some shallots not cut very well because too many things. Anyway, back onto the kangkung belacan. Frying off my green beans, and then I'll add my spring greens. Now, like I say, this is quite simple. This dish is all the recipes I found reference kind of using sambal. So that spicy fishy sauce that I mentioned in the beginning. So essentially I cooked it off in that because that was the easiest way to do that. And the sambal was good, so I didn't really mind having more in there. But that is a nice easy side dish. There's that bit of that sambal going in. So interestingly enough, the Brunei government website, they actually have a whole like recipe database on there. So that actually proved really useful for finding a lot of things, because for a lot of countries that I choose to make food for, finding authentic recipes is very, very difficult. So this dish is one I got off there. This is one they call, it's a mackerel curry dish called, I'm sorry if I've butchered this pronunciation, ikan tengri masak curry. The curry bit, it's self-explanatory. It's ginger, shallot, turmeric, curry, coconut milk, basically to form a sauce. This makes it quite easy to do because it's a little bit different. As you might have gathered, a lot of the trend from this is sambal is great, and so a lot of the flavors going on were sambal, that spicy fishy flavor. So I really wanted something different and a bit lighter than everything else. And as you can see, this is already like a nice different light sauce. But essentially I formed the sauce, got everything going, and then I threw my mackerel in to cook. Nice, left that to kind of poach in that sauce, become the curry as it wanted to. Easy enough, and some more like delicate flavors going on. It was actually quite simple to make and really, really good. So yeah, I totally make this on its own as well. It's definitely a different way of making a different type of curry. I also made sambal prawns. Grilled prawns seem to be quite often a dish done with ambuyat. There's a few recipes on the government website that also do prawn with kind of like a sambal type sauce. So throwing in some of those peppers, more shallots, a bit of that sambal, and then throwing in the prawns to grill as well. And that will be another one of my dishes to go with the ambuyat. And I realise I keep referencing the ambuyat and you don't know what that is. Or you do know what it is and you're probably judging my process so far. But either way, the ambuyat I will get to in a minute, because the side dishes at this point are the longer bit. But anyway, these are kind of my sauteed prawns to go as another side, because this is a big old feast. Anyway, the main I guess feature is the ambuyat. This is as far as I know, quite a unique dish in Brunei. Don't know if it's elsewhere, but it's made from sago starch. Sago comes from the sago palm tree trunk. It's a fine powder. You mix it with boiling water until it forms a very smooth glue-like consistency. Now, I was really struggling with this, and I don't know why, because I bought proper like sago starch and it just wasn't really forming with boiling water. I ended up moving it into a saucepan, wondering if maybe I just didn't have enough heat. And that did seem to help, because as you saw, my jug wasn't big enough. My bowl, it was bigger, but like I say, I just don't think the heat was there. It was just kind of a paste rather than glue. Adding that heat on the in the saucepan, that did seem to help. It was turning a bit more transparent, but it still wasn't quite like the clear consistency I was looking for. But at this point, I had a huge amount that I didn't really know what to do with, and it wasn't really changing much. And I don't know how much more you can kind of screw up sago and starch and water, hot water. So at this point, I don't know if maybe the sago starch I had was different. But anyway, here is my feast. My sauces at the top, the sambal, the durian tempoyak, and a mixture of both. My beef belatak, the grilled prawns, the mackerel curry, and the kangkung belacan. So all of these side dishes, I've already kind of explained how they tasted. The ambuyat itself, the starchy bit in the middle, you kind of scoop it up and eat the sides and the sauce with it. It doesn't actually have that much flavour on its own. It has a little bit, it's hard to describe, but you eat it with the sides, and honestly, really fun eating experience. Highly recommend trying it, but probably in Brunei. For dessert, I was aiming to make cendol. This is a cool, refreshing, sweet drink. It's a coffee shop type thing. It's made with pandan, like noodles. Think tapioca pearls type thing. Coconut milk or cream, and a palm sugar syrup. So kind of like a layered drink with little noodly, pearly things. So pandan, I had some pandan that I ground up myself to make the coloured liquid. Pandan has kind of a subtle grassy flavour. I have to say, you can buy like pandan extracts flavouring cans of the juice. I do recommend it. Blending my own sauce, effort. Making my palm sugar syrup. I also use coconut sugar in this because I had a lot more coconut sugar to hand. That bit was easy. That's just a nice simple syrup. Just let that cook down. And then the pandan juice is what I'm going to be using to make the pandan noodles. So it's mainly for flavouring. So in order to thicken that up, I need to add into my liquid, form a slurry so that I don't just get clumps. Essentially, I need a thick noodle. Now, I'm just going to give you a heads up. This process was insanely hard, and I am going to show you how I screwed it up. I don't know exactly what I did wrong, but I don't really like making desserts. That was a mistake, that adding the coconut sugar. I didn't think about that, but I had the nice bright green, and that brown sugar, that screwed with the colour. I should not have done that. I should have gone with the white sugar. Yeah, as you can see at this point, I'd realised, oh crap, I made it ugly. So yes, mistake number 1. Fine, that one was an obvious one, but further along, yeah, things were just not going well. So to form the noodles, you can see it's after the heat's thickened up, you kind of push it through like a colander. First I tried it with my little colander thing, and it was just too shallow. So at this point I was thinking, you can see it's kind of, they're pushing through and I'm getting little things, but it's just not working very well. It doesn't push through super easily, and they're kind of ugly. So at this point I decided to switch to my big colander because that would just make things easier. Push it through into the ice water, and then it kind of sets, the aim is that it sets immediately into these noodle things. Now I'm just going to point out, when you make a thick, very sticky, glue-like starchy substance, it's heck awful to clean. So just think like green glue everywhere. Like by this point I had mess everywhere. You get it in the colander, it goes everywhere. Squeezing it through was really difficult. Everything was sticky. This was just so much mess. And I mean, it kind of worked. It did. I mean, they produced little separate things. You can see there, but they're not very pretty. There's obviously better ways to do this. They do them in the proper way. I managed to make the drink, and it did taste good, but I made so much mess, and I had so much of that like green glue left over, and I didn't know what to do with it because I kept making more to try to save it. I tried to make like a cake out of it, add some sugar and eggs because it's like a sticky flour base, and that didn't work. I just basically had a sticky flat mess. Basically, this was the worst thing. I just screwed everything up. Drinking itself was fine, but like honestly, I would just use tapioca pearls like the closest similarity.